The views and opinions expressed by the guests, callers, and hosts on this and all Rense Radio Network programs do not necessarily reflect or agree with those of the network, its commercial sponsors, its radio station affiliates, or internet broadcast platforms. In these controversial times, we believe the First Amendment and freedom of the press are absolutely essential to the survival of our nation. Thank you. And now, enjoy the program.
It's Monday. We made it through another weekend. I should say we made it through another week last week. I used to think weekends were time to rest and reflect, but the powers that be are not giving us those days off anymore. It's nonstop, 25 hours a day of news cycles, which used to last for a week or two or three. Now they last for an hour or two or three. They come and they go. I have, over the long term of this program, in fact, this week, we begin here our 27th year in service to trying to help people have access to reality by which they can hopefully better make their own decisions about what's going on. We don't like people to stare at the television and think that they are being informed. They are not. They are being programmed. That's where the word came from, programming. And in all of the years of doing this program, I have met an awful lot of really heroic Americans, patriotic Americans, brilliant Americans, inspiring Americans, and many have become friends. It is funny how when you get into a groove in this kind of business, time can go by so rapidly. Years ago, I had our first guest on regularly. We used to talk a lot, and Pastor James David Manning is one of my heroes, and he is working harder than ever in what we used to call Harlem to try to help America's African Americans wake up and get a grip. He has put his life on the line. He is outspoken, but he always is worth listening to, no matter who you are or where you are or what you are. And it's really a pleasure to have a man I like to call my friend, James David Manning, back on the program this first hour tonight. Pastor Manning, welcome back. It's been too long, and I apologize for that.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for having me, and I greatly appreciate that very long introduction. But more importantly, let me congratulate you for 27 years of broadcasting, and starting out at a time when social media was not as prominent as it is now, nor the television programming that you so accurately described as powerful as it is now. and you have survived, and you're still surviving. So 27, I have to take my hat off and say congratulations on a great job that's been done. America certainly should find you as a national treasure.
Well, thank you. Thank you very kindly. It has been something that, like you, and I think the both of us understand this very well, we are blessed to be able to have the confidence and certainly trust, at least respect, of a lot of very wonderful people. We're trying to reach out, and you have been doing this for a long time. And I guess the way to start out the conversation, just with a kind of a silly general topic, but when you look at what's happening now, how do you feel? What's wrong out there? Now, my feeling is that this is clearly a long-planned, internationally financed effort to co-opt the minds and value systems of our young people and turn them against the orthodoxy, the political system that we use to maintain relative order. It's an attempted overthrow. Let's just be frank about it. That's my view. How do you see it?
I think that if I start locally, Jeff, I'm in Harlem, as you have indicated to your audience, and the folk know that I'm here, and I've been here now for 40 years in Harlem, and I've worked tirelessly to try to wake up the people of this community who are in a extraordinarily deep sleep. If you ask me, what do I think and what do I feel now? It appears to me that the sleep is getting deeper, or the injections that cause us to stupor, that, as you say, is heavily financed and heavily influenced, is growing worse. Now, I have not given up. I feel very strong about the potential of one day being able to see people rise up. But when I look at what's presently happening now and what's been happening over the past few years, if I look generally at Harlem, now I can speak globally and I can speak nationally about what I see because there are a number of national things that perhaps we can discuss here tonight. But if I'm talking about black people in general, I see a more depressing group of people than there were 60 years ago or 70 years ago and even 40 years ago. I see a decline, a breakdown in morality, a sense of selflessness, and a sense of having absolutely no idea of what true morality and life is all about and what they should be about themselves. And rather than moving forward and gradually growing out of the process, I see people getting worse. You know, Jeff, I've looked at the past 150 years since the advent of slavery or the Emancipation Proclamation or the end of the Civil War. And it appears to me that the first 75 years, that's from 1865 to, let's say, 1950, were years where progress was made, where there was a strength in morality and there was a sense of people knowing what is right and what is wrong and dependence but the past 70, going back from 2020 to, let's say, 1960, has been a decline in the sense of truth, morality, and I've seen the people grow weaker and weaker and weaker. And I would say it could be discouraging, but I am not. I feel at some point in time that I'm going to break through, and that people are going to hear me ultimately. That's one area that I'd want to.
I want to just comment on what you just said, and I think you just summed it up magnificently. I think you've got it nailed right down to the 60s. In my view, during the war years, after the war years, in through the 50s, Americans of all colors, especially African Americans, were really, I think, united in that wartime feeling of assimilation, becoming one culture, one society. I remember as a little kid seeing African Americans out on Sundays like regular white people, white families would do. The same thing. They'd get dressed up. They'd take the kids out. They looked terrific. They looked fantastic. And they had pride. They had pride in how they looked, how they carried themselves, how they walked. And my God, our culture then, and a lot of people listening don't remember that, but my heroes from that age, and I mean this, let's just take sports. The number one greatest, most inspirational boxer of all time, pound for pound, was Ray Robinson. Sugar Ray Robinson. He was 175 fights, won 120 by knockout, and the way he handled himself in front of the cameras as a role model for all youngsters, all kids, was marvelous. And as far as singing, it's not rap. It was singing. And Tony Williams, the lead singer of the Platters, was the best, most wonderful singer I think I've ever heard in the popular genre. Now, that's just to say that what you're pointing out now, we've got, many more singers who have made much more money than Tony did. But what are they purveying to young people that makes them inspired about life and morality and living and the values that we're supposed to have? Nothing. It's garbage. It's not music. So we have gotten weaker, and I just want to commend you for that observation. It's true. We've all gotten weaker.
Yeah, speaking of singers, and of course I could go back to not only Sugar Ray, but Floyd Patterson and several others that were favorites of mine during that era.
Sure.
And probably the problem with you and I, Jeff, is that we have a little bit of age upon us, and not everybody in your audience can personally relate to that period. But, Jay-Z is a billionaire, all right?
With a B, a billionaire. Yes.
Right. And you talk about what Tony Williams or what others would have made during the time that they were singing, and certainly singing in a way that represented humanity and represented family. And they all sung about love. I'm in love with you, you're in love with me, or, I see the harbor lights, or...
Sure. But there you go.
There is now a culture of young black men that all they do is bitch and moan. All they do is cuss. All they do is call women, the black woman, the most despicable names. The most despicable things come out, and they get paid billions of dollars to it. And Jay-Z is not the only one. They gets paid large amounts of money to degrade his mother, his sister, the women of his own genre. And I mean, who would have ever thought that that's where music would go? But that's what.
And they pay him. They pay him to do that. Think about it. They're supporting him.
I know that.
It's crazy.
The thing I say to my audience from time to time is that, and there's a young fellow who's on the air now stating that once these entertainers, Jay-Z, these rappers, go into the what he calls Lucifer's door, they don't really know black people anymore, and the people who own the music industry and the media industry, these types that own this industry, who can promote you or they can demote you. You're not going to go anywhere unless they put their stamp of approval on you. I don't care what you're singing or doing. And once they go in there, the more vile they are, the more they are promoted. The more vicious they are in degrading and teaching our young men and women, our young boys and girls, how to think in degrading modes, the more money they make. It is a very shameful time in which we live. But I'm still hopeful, as I stated earlier.
I think what you've just said is so important, and I keep going back to that word weaker. Our young people are no longer able to, let's just call it, think for themselves. They're not proactive about life. They've been trained. I don't blame them. It's not their fault. They've been trained to be reactive. They're given a stimuli and they react. And they pay for it. And it's very malicious the way this whole thing is set up. But yes, they've been degraded. There has been a tremendous breakdown in morals. They're virtually gone in terms of much of the pop culture here now. There's nothing there. pornography was the key in destroying the nuclear family, morality, guidelines, boundaries, and I think good parenting. And that goes for both white and black and Latino families. When you don't have a two-family household and a strong mother and father, you got nothing. You got kids that are going to be turned loose at 9, 10 with the cell phone you bought them, and they're gone. Goodbye. Gone.
I agree with you completely about the pornography aspect of what it has done in terms of demoralizing both black and white groups. I mean, it is everywhere, and it's now accessible to young people. They know how to go online, how to find it, how to become sexual degenerates and sexual predators. They understand that process.
Oh, yeah.
And it's being fueled everywhere, and it's you can't get around it. But there is the other thing, and I want to talk about. I want to name Black Lives Matter before, because Jeff, think about this for just a second. When the rap music that we were talking about a moment ago became eminent in the 80s and the 90s, and up into the year 2000 or so, there was this thing called the East Coast, West Coast rappers. And the East Coast rappers were in competition, not just in musical competition as some sort of sing-out, but they were in violent death competition with each other, with people like Tupac Shakur, Suge Knight, and all that crowd, and Run DMC. They were actually killing one another back and forth across in the music genre. This same group that was violently killing black men and singing about killing black men and by the way, singing about killing police officers as well. Now out in the street, and them and their children out there marching with Black Lives Matter as if somehow or another. I mean, Jeff, if you took the number of black people that were killed by black people just in the rap industry, forget about Chicago, forget about some of the other places, that it would dwarf the number of people that allegedly have been killed by either white people or police brutality. And they are swelling in their numbers. The media is covering them like this is Gone with the Wind or some great movie that's not ending 24/7. But these are the very people that do all the killing of each other. And no one, Jeff, I'm going to let you say a word, but I've watched the media now for the last 3-4 weeks, and I've not heard one commentator say to black folk with respect to what's going on, but have you considered your own inhumanity towards each other as a racial group? Nobody's ever stated that. It's always white folk. They're always wrong. White folk are doing us wrong. White folks they're doing us wrong. We got to get some justice. We need to. It's a very sad time.
Boy, you said it again. You did touch on the word Chicago there. Oh, just over. Now this is Father's Day weekend in Chicago. 9 dead, 100 shot altogether. Father's Day weekend, Justin, Mayor Lightfoot's Chicago. What are you going to do? It's incredible. What you just said is right. They just have been turned inward on each other. And we talked about porn a little bit, but let me also mention the other side of that porn coin and we'll call it soft porn. It's a coin, it's got two sides. Soft porn, that's the kind of stuff you see on primetime TV. Women being abused, yelled at, mistreated, women dressing like hoes, men acting just primitive. These images, when our young people stare at the television, they go into a trance state. The first time takes about 60 to 90 seconds. After you become used to going into a trance state, staring at the television image, the big screen, or your cell phone, doesn't matter, you are no longer able to discern what is going into your subconscious mind. It just pours right on in there. So all of these images, all of these stereotypes, all of these constructs take up residence in your subconscious. And over a period of time, they tip you over, and you become that which you are staring at. It's not for everyone, but most. This is why they all talk the same. They all dress the same. There's rigid peer pressure to be in, or you're in trouble. You're gone. So I've never seen anything more disconcerting and frankly discouraging than what I see now in our younger people.
There's a commercial we're running now for the past 3 to 4 months regarding a drug called Biktarry. And the drug Biktarry allegedly is a drug that allows a person that's affected with HIV, of which there is no cure at present. But the Biktarry drug has a way of suppressing its presence in testing or in semen. And while it doesn't cure the individual carrier of AIDS, it allows you to have sex without infecting your sexual partner, as it were. And even if a test is given in you that if you're using Biktarry on a daily basis, even a test will not be able to determine that you have. And so they are promoting this drug by saying, just be who you are. Continue to be homosexual, continue to be male-to-male sex, but use Biktarry and you can do what you want. And then it ends with two men standing in a really intimate dinner evening, and they kiss one another. But the two men happen to be African-American or black men, and they kiss one another right there on television. And I mean, they do a tongue kiss. Jeff, you probably remember when kissing on television was, it was considered taboo. Two men kissing on television and it's shown in prime time, midday, and every
and that's
other time.
going into the minds of our children. This is horrible. And when I say children, I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb here and talk about Generation Z, the last generation. That's 25 years and younger. I kind of like to think of all those in the same child victim group that is being so viciously and brutally exploited by these images in the media. They have no mercy on them. And when I see these rioters out there, all colors, it doesn't matter, they all appear to be Generation Z, 25 or younger. Not all, but let's say 90%. And I just know that these young people do not have the wisdom to know what the hell they're doing. They don't. They're programmed. They're useless eaters. That's what Kissinger would call them.
I've never heard that term, useless eaters.
That was a New World. That was a New World Order globalist term that Kissinger dropped out. That's how they look upon these people. But they just aren't engaged in the lifetime pursuit of knowledge, which leads ultimately to wisdom. They're reacting on a very superficial level, and they're just not there. And I wonder what these young people are going to turn into in another 10 years, 15, if they live that long. There's nothing going on.
One of the things that I've observed about Generation Z, you're absolutely right. They have their sense of foundation of morality and values. They've gotten from social media, which is an unrestricted, ungodly, if you will, source of which they are constantly engaged in 24 hours per day.
Yep.
But the thing, Jeff, is if you talk to them, they think they know better than you. They are absolutely convinced. And then you've got baby boomers, Jeff, that encourage them. For instance, the media and other major, if you will, industries with the financing are encouraging these people to be who they are. They're not encouraging them to develop and to be people of great moral values that built this nation and that established it as a city on a hill that it once was. So what we're looking at is people that actually they're being robbed of their opportunity to know life, and it isn't just that they're out there stupid and ignorant. But the other thing, there's a sense of joy and development and an accomplishment leading towards a sense of wisdom and contributions to humankind. They don't they don't understand that. And I think one of the things that probably has inspired them is they think that out there looting and marching and cursing and defaming as they are is they somehow they feel they're accomplishing something, that they're mimicking something that perhaps took part in the past that makes them look like they're doing something of nobility.
You know, you just keep putting your finger on key issue after key issue. These young people, you mentioned boomers, we call Gen Z Zoomers. Some people do anyway. And you're right, their future has been already stolen from them in most cases. They're never going to come around to saying, geez, I missed something back there. I missed something. I missed a foundation. I missed morality. I missed responsibility. I missed accountability. I'm not a victim. I'm in charge of what I do on this planet, and I'm going to be accountable. They're never going to get to that level. It's been stolen from them. You're right. You're 100% right. Hold on if you would. We've got to take a break here, but you know what I want to do? Instead of doing commercials, I'm going to play a little example of what 1950s musical ethos was. This is Tony Williams, and this is a song that was actually written, I believe, in the late 20s, and he and the Platters did it, and it's take a listen here. This is what Pastor Manning and I have been talking about for you younger people.
It just doesn't get any better than that, and voices that are silky smooth, committed. It doesn't get any better in setup. It's just a beautiful, the Great Pretender. I used to sing that song. I'm the Great Pretender, and I saw the harbor lights.
And only you. Remember that? Only you.
Oh, yeah.
Only you. Oh. That's Tony Williams. Only you.
Yeah,
I'm working on 2 CDs of Tony Williams' greatest, and when they're done, I'm going to make sure you get a set. You just put one of these on, and you just go. You go into a better place. It's just that way.
Jeff, can I share this with you?
Sure.
In our church, traditional, if you will, Black or African American church structure. But Jeff, because I love that music. I mean, I love it. I know it all, and I mean, I go back to Dinah Washington, to Brooke Benton, to all that. I'm sure you remember those great voices as well.
Yeah.
The church has allowed me to teach this music to young people in our church, from the toddlers to the college age to the older people.
Wow.
And generally, people would think, well, that music does not belong inside of a church. It belongs in a dance hall or someplace. But they've allowed me to put it inside of a church. And one of my engineers that handle our broadcast daily was born and raised on rap music.
Uh-huh.
And that's all he knew. But then I started introducing this music, such as what you just played, and the others that you know that are in that same period, from the 50s all the way up to the 70s, and just about up to the disco music, and then I stopped. The Motown sounds as well were included. And he said he just never heard any music like that. All he ever heard was rap. But interesting, I had no idea you would introduce something such as what you've introduced with this music tonight. You have struck a nerve with me, and all the members of our congregation know how much I love that music. Thank you for doing that tonight. I appreciate that greatly.
I didn't plan it. It just I was just kind of go where it feels, and I'm really impressed with you using it. It is a wonderful tool to get to the inner workings of a young person or any person. Like you said, this kid had grown up on rap. He didn't know about this. He didn't even know this kind of music existed. And look what they've lost. It's been stolen from them. Oh, gee. All right. Here's what we've got now. I've got a couple of clips with great actor Morgan Freeman. All right. He's featured in this.
That's the Shawshank Redemption?
No, these are little clips from interviews, and he's talking about what's going on now with whites and blacks, and his first little clip is with Don Lemon, or Lemon, however he pronounces it at CNN. But listen to what Morgan Freeman, everyone, has to say about a kind of a leading question, but that's okay. Here, take a listen.
Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't
today?
Or cannot? Yeah.
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Where are we in the United States of America?
Now this is the rapper Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne. This is him.
Skip, they wouldn't want to ask me that. They wouldn't want my answer to represent it because God knows I have been nothing but blessed. My whole path, these 33 years have been nothing but a blessing. I have never, and never is a strong word, I've never dealt with racism, and I'm glad I didn't have to.
How's that? Lil Wayne. And, see, when you can get Americans, I don't care who they are, to stand up and tell it like it is, it often comes right through. And I'm going to jump around here in this little video. Here's Morgan Freeman again with Mike Wallace.
Of racism until... Stop talking about it.
Oh, let me back this up here. Here we go.
Solvers who don't want the patient to get well.
Here it comes.
That was said by Booker T. Washington.
How are we going to get rid of racism until... Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man. Yeah. And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
It's frustrating to me that people take race and they make it personal.
A younger,
you know what I mean?
Comedian.
Like we're at a loss in this generation. If you look at it in the 80s, Archie Bunker was a stark racist. Stark. If you don't know who Archie Bunker is, look him up. All in the Family, great show. The Jeffersons, stark racist. Fred Sanford, stark racist. But you know what black people and white people did? They laughed. You watch 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Both of them hated each other because he was black and because he was white. You know what they did? They laughed.
But I asked you what the racial breakdown was of your audience. Do you remember this? You told me the only black face you could see in the whole audience was your makeup artist. I believe that's what you said. She was in the front row, right? A lot of white kids love rap.
Yes.
Explain that. What does that say to you? What's the message of it? What's the bigger picture of it?
I don't want to be bashed because I don't want to sound like I'm on the wrong if there is a side, but I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism. That's what I thought that was.
I said, and it's probably get me in trouble, but I said to some of my colleagues recently, so I know that it's an issue, but it seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle, it's in the news, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it, I want to just go, this is over, can we move on?
And if you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it, but making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is the problem we have.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Morgan Freeman again. Just to give all of you an idea out there that there are a lot of African American, Black Americans who get it. We're all, that's the kind of country we could have and should have had.
Jeff,
that was the prevailing ethos.
Booker T. Washington is my hero of heroes. That was mentioned by Morgan Freeman. He's the man that has inspired me to be the man I am today, let down my bucket where I'm at. And I'm glad to hear you, that being said tonight in our discourse, But there's something I want to say, and I said it this weekend preaching in our church. Well, I said it earlier last week. We need to stop calling ourselves black and white. I'm not black. I'm a brown-skinned man, and I've seen my wife is even a lighter color than I am. We need to start calling ourselves either by the names of the fathers, going back to the biblical structure of Noah, and we can talk about that at another time. But I think the racist name, color names, causes us to think about ourselves in racial ways.
All it does is divide. It completely divides instantly.
It's a tool to force us into a corner and to take a side. It forces us to take a side. But the other thing is, and that needs to be said, is that and to use the term ideal, black people need to be blamed for what is happening to them. Morgan Freeman just said it. He says, "Listen, you work hard, you do what you need to do, and you get to where you need to do. You don't involve yourself with the other ideas that are self-defacing and self-defeating." There has been the last 50 years where nobody has held black people accountable for the mess, for the fathers that desert their children, for the crime in the neighborhoods, for the black-on-black crime that they do one towards the other, for the absence of development, for the absence of looking towards and developing themselves into a character of people that can be respected. I mean, if you look at Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson, one of those boys out on the basketball court, you respect the fact that they have developed those talents out there, and you go get out there to play them. No matter who you are, you respect these boys can play. But when you look at the 99.9% of black people in general, whether they be men or women, they have not developed, they have not caused other people to respect their integrity of how they manage their own neighborhoods, how they manage their own families, what they've done with their own children, their own work ethics. They haven't done it, and nobody's blaming them. They blame everybody else for what their own problem. I heard this Anderson Cooper the other night on television talking about this Rayshard Brooks guy, or Don Lemon. No, it was Dan Jones, saying that because he was on parole, he ran from the police officer, and how awful that was, that somebody needed to have pity on him because he was on parole and he didn't want to be arrested. Well, hell, if he's on parole, why is he out there in the middle of the street drunk, driving a car, impeding traffic, falling asleep behind the wheel? If he is afraid of being arrested, then stay home and don't become a public drunk. I mean, nobody blames the younger people and this generation for their own faults. I need to say that. I want to say that. I had to say that.
Thank you. No, it's all about accountability for our decisions. He decided to drink and drive, and he was so drunk he fell asleep in line at Wendy's in his car. That's drunk. Okay? There is responsibility. Unfortunately, it had a real bad ending.
Yeah, but it did. No doubt about that. There's no doubt about that.
No.
But if he had stayed home and not gotten drunk,
of course,
we wouldn't know anything about this.
Of course.
So where does the responsibility? Where does the accountability start? Where does the responsibility start? After?
It starts when you're. It starts when you're a little kid at home, and your mother or father, hopefully, will teach you about accountability. And you know, he's been in prison. That's accountability. He went to prison. Yeah. Ex-convict. Yeah. Okay? He didn't learn his lesson.
No, he did not.
No?
He certainly did not.
All right.
But these are items that I think that we're going to have to rethink the conversation. First of all, we got to stop the titles, the racial titles, and we got to realize that it is a weapon that continues to keep us divided. However, if we were to roll back the clock to the time of the Platters, America was a much better America. In Harlem, men wore suits and ties, and the women were well dressed. You could walk down the street any day of the week and see respectable people. You thought you were on Wall Street in Harlem, New York City. Today, You see men on canes and crutches of the same age. You see them homeless. They haven't changed their underwear in months. They don't own a roll of toilet paper. They live in a homeless shelter. They buy nothing for themselves. They don't own a spoon or a fork. They come out during the day and stand on the streets and go back to the shelters. You could walk up and down 125th Street, which is from river to river, which is about a 2-mile stretch, and see maybe only one or two Hamado black men wearing a suit or a tie. It is pathetic. And just 40, 50 years ago, that was the absolute different opposite of what we see going on today. There has been a shift in morality. There's been a shift in our thinking process, and we're doing far worse now than we have ever done. And I have to live with this, by the way, every day. But I'm still hopeful that one day these people that are sleeping will wake up.
I hope. That's all I can do is hope. It is a daunting problem when you think about the mass media in this country and what it purveys constantly. And I don't care if somebody sits in front of a TV or looks at billboards. The messages are all of the same ilk. And as far as African Americans go, I think they really need to understand who put them in this original mess 400 years ago, and they're still being controlled by that same international group right now, and they will not look at it. They cannot. They don't have the knowledge. They don't know how this whole thing started. It wasn't their fault. Hell, they were kidnapped and stolen from their homeland and brought over here and sold. And billions were made on them in dollars back in the day. This was a horrible industry. Who was behind it? See, that's not talked about. They need to talk about that. They need to understand history. And maybe it'll help some of them. I don't know. I don't have the answer, Pastor Manning. I know when you talk to people in your church, you reach out and you're able to connect with people. And I can't even imagine how many lives you've turned around over the years simply by holding out the hand of wisdom to somebody and holding a mirror up at them. Go ahead.
The power of money and the power of enslavement hasn't stopped. It's just changed its method. It hasn't stopped. The purchasing, the enslavement, the mental enslavement, and the physical flesh enslavement of ball and chain of the antebellum South is not evident today. But the whole concept has just elevated itself to a new social age. It hasn't changed. The perpetrators haven't changed their tactics either. I mean, it's still a very profitable industry. As I said before, listen, let me tell you something. You could, Jay-Z, and I call him, but there are hundreds of others of them out there who get paid billions of dollars in the music industry and in the media industry. Mm-hmm. And mainly this industry is run by Jewish people that controls this segment of our planet. And you will never hear Jay-Z say anything about Jewish people, but he will cuss black people and black women up and down the street. But he will not. And the moment he does, they'll snatch his record deal, snatch his money, and rape his wife and kick him on the street. And he'll never be anything anymore. And that's the kind of power that's a form of if you will, enslavement mentally. And then he is sent out to degrade all other young men. And because he's got such power and exposure, he's in media, he's a giant, he's larger than life. These young boys idolize him and want to be like him and are willing to sell their souls to do whatever it is to get to where he's at as well. It is a very powerful demon that is being used, and it has not stopped over the past 400 years. And I don't know that anybody plans to stop it. Except for me.
Well, as long as there's money on this planet and greed, it probably won't. But you're right. Most young people, they're idols, athletes. I'm talking about all young people. Athletes, entertainers, celebrities.
Yes, sir.
Performers,
yes, sir.
okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Athletes, entertainers, all of them, once they get those contracts, their soul has been purchased. And,
well
and don't
said.
expect them to relate. Once they get those contracts, they go through a different door.
They're gone. They'll sell out. I would say, tragically, I would say 99.999% of our young people today, 25 and under, will sell their soul like that to get that money, to have that status, to be a celebrity. That's what it's all about. Look at YouTube, full of people yearning to be YouTubers. That's the term they use for YouTube celebrities. They got so many people that like them, and they're I don't have a smartphone. I don't use Twitter. I don't understand really how it works fully, but I get the idea. And I'm just holding on to the old stuff. I got enough to do, you know. I don't have time to stare at that damn screen and put up silly messages. I went to the store today, and speaking of toilet paper, I bought toilet paper. They finally got it back in stock. I mean, this is the kind of thing that people are actually thinking is important to share with their other human beings, their friends that they have, their associates. And I'm not sure, Pastor Manning, what the word friend even means anymore. It's acquaintance, I guess, better than anything else. Oh, he's my friend. Oh, is he really? Or she's my friend. Really? What is a friend? These friends get changed like socks. They just come and they go. It seems that way anyway. And I'm very concerned about this Generation Z, our young people 25 and under, who are just tragically, not all of them. Some are listening right now. And upon you who are listening lies the burden of helping those around you that care to be helped, to see the light, okay? You got to get them out of that darkness, and it's not easy to do. We just have about a minute or so left, my friend. What do you want to say here in closing tonight?
I've said perhaps an interpretation of a lot of condescending words. Let me say this as a word of uplift to all the people that are in the streets over the past few weeks that are marching and protesting. I'm not speaking specifically to Black Lives Matter. I think the spiritual root of that organization is satanic and evil, and its purpose is to divide and destroy. But just in general, to the masses of young people, I have to tell you that I'm old enough to remember a group called the Hippies and even the Beatniks. That the hippies in the 60s were in the streets. They marched. They wore long hair. They smoked pot. And they were all over the streets. They drove around in VW buses. They had the Woodstock musical event up in here in New York, and they were a prevalent group of people in the street. And it looked as if they were going to stay that way forever. Well, they were in their 20s and 30s like these young people today. But later on, they became 40, and they started 40s and 50s and got married and settled down. They dropped all of that. They realized that it was not a way of life. It was not sustainable. So I say to these young people now, you're going to look back on these days that you're out in the street thinking that you're right and cursing that which is right and moral. And one day you're going to wake up and realize how wrong you were for marching and carrying the signs and carrying the ideas and the spirit that you're carrying now. Go back and study the life and times of the hippies of the 1960s in Laurel Canyon, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
That's very nicely said, and words to the wise, for sure. You give the location that you'd like people to go and look at your online site, Pastor Manning. Which one would you like them to go to?
We're at atlah.org. That's ATLAH.org. You can find out everything you need to find out about us right there at that site, atlah.org.
And if you'd like to send Pastor Manning an email, tell him keep at it. Yeah.
Send it to atlah1@aol.com.
atlah1@aol.com. Very good. Great to have you back on the program, Pastor Manning. Thank you for being out there and doing what you do.
Thank you for the success that you have and continue to do the work that you're doing. Thank you, Jeff, for having me tonight.
You bet. Okay, good night.
Take care now.
All right. Pastor James David Manning Really one of a kind.